welcome back to the session once again, and let's continue from where we left before we took a small break. This is where we were discussing about the IndAS 105, which is on non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operations. So जैसा मैंने पहले फिर से बताता हूँ कि कोई भी इंडेक्स को पढ़ने से पहले बस 2 मिनट में ये सोचना कि इस इंडेक्स का मकसद क्या है, और याद रखना कि इंडेक्सेस का मकसद क्या है। इंडेक्सेस का मकसद क्या है, ताकि हमारे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को जो भी पढ़े, he should be able to take well informed economic decisions, whether it is P&L or balance sheet or cash flow statement. वो हो somebody who is reading our financial statements, he should be able to take a well informed decision. That is why the accounting standards have been brought in. So this particular index which I am reading, इससे क्या मकसद सर्व होने वाला है, what purpose this particular index is going to serve, and why these provisions are there. ये थोड़ा सा आपने कनेक्शन बिठा दिया, your life will become very easy. अब जैसे हम इंडेक्स 105 का देखा, and I'm sure you can very easily understand. Plant and machinery है, land है, building है ना, सबको मालूम है नॉन करंट एसेट है, लेकिन एक बार आपने डिसीजन ले लिया कि ये एसेट तो मुझे डिस्पोज करनी है, now you will not classify them into non current assets. अगर आपने ये कंसेप्ट समझ लिया कि why it is not to be classified as non-current asset, it is not to be classified non-current asset because now the intention of the company is to dispose it off and get money out of it actually, right? And then it fits into the definition of current assets, because current asset is what? Current asset is an asset. So the definition of current asset never says that current asset is an inventory, current asset is a cash. What it says, current asset is an asset which is expected to get converted into cash within a period of 1 year. Then you have IndAS 106, exploration for and evaluation of mineral resources. As you can see, that this one is going to be specifically applicable with regard to a company which is into the mining or exploration activity. And what provisions would be here? How to do the mining reserves, how to do the accounting of mining, how to value the assets, and that is what will be part of IndAS 106. And then you have IndAS 107, which is financial instruments disclosures. So we talked about IndAS 32 on financial instruments that spoke about presentation. And please remember, on financial instruments there are 3 standards. And I can tell you, and I'm sure all of you would also have noticed because you have done this course already. So the IndAS 32, IndAS 109 and IndAS 107. These 3 standards on one side and remaining 36 standards on the other side, they are all equal. But they are so voluminous, IndAS 109, 32 and 107, so voluminous, this is the side. So IndAS 10 talk about in terms of disclosure. So IndAS 32 will talk about the presentation, how to present it, and IndAS 107 will talk about how to disclose, what kind of disclosures to make with regard to different financial instruments that a company may be having on its balance sheet. IndAS 108 is about operating segments. Now please remember, again, why is the need to have IndAS 108 on the operating segments? Very simple. There is a company. Company is having 10 segments. Now these 10 segments are having different products or different geographies, right, or different markets. If the company is presenting its balance sheet and P&L and the cash flow or its financials in a consolidated manner, that means all the 10 segments are put together in one place and the information is disclosed, will a person who is reading this P&L or the balance sheet, P&L, but more P&L, will he be able to take an informed decision? And the answer is no. Why? Because it is possible out of those 10 segments, 3 segments are doing well, 7 segments are not doing well. So therefore, what decision that he would take is going to be a blurred one. And that is why you have operating segments, and that's the reason why companies are supposed to make disclosure, present their financials in a manner which is dividing the business into different segments and giving information about those segments separately, so that anyone who is wanting to take a decision to invest money into that company or any other kind of decision, he can see as to how is this company's future going to be. So for example, if out of those 10 segments, 7 are not doing well, they are making losses, 3 are doing good. So obviously, any decision that I would think, I would take, hoping that the company or everything is good with the company, my decision may turn out to be a wrong decision. So that's your IndAS 108, and then of course you got IndAS 114, which is regulatory deferral payment schedule. Okay, then we segregate in the second category, that is balance sheet and P&L, and these are 18 different standards which in my view will fall into the category of balance sheet and P&L. That means what? That means all these standards will impact the balance sheet, and obviously if it will impact the balance sheet, and it also will impact the P&L. So IndAS 2 is about the inventories. I'm sure you can very easily understand. IndAS 12, income taxes. I'm sure we see with the help of an example as to how the IndAS 12 on income tax can change the presentation of information of the earning per share to the shareholders. Then you got IndAS 16, which is on property, plant and equipment. IndAS 19, which is on employee benefits, and this means what? This means all kinds of benefits. Superannuation, provident fund, gratuity, leave encashment, how the liabilities should be made, because all these liabilities are to be paid in a distant future. So how those provisions should be made, that is what is covered in IndAS 19 on employee benefits. IndAS 20 is about accounting for government grants and disclosures of government assistance. So we all know that the governments of the center as well as the government of states from time to time bring out different kind of incentive schemes so as to promote industrialization of the state, right? So from that perspective, they sometimes give you grant, they sometimes give you assistance, and they sometimes give you loans also. So how to do the accounting of all that is covered in IndAS 20. IndAS 21 is the effects of changes in foreign exchange rates. Ab dekhiye, you have sold, you have exported a consignment. All of you please pay attention. You have exported a consignment to America worth $1 million. Right? You have exported a consignment to America worth $1 million. So when you ship the consignment, the dollar rupee rate was 75. So $1 was equal to rupee 75. When you receive the payment, the dollar rupee rate has undergone a change, and when you receive the payment 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, as the terms of the contract would be with the importer in US, when you receive the payment, the dollar exchange rate has become 85. So $1 is equal to 85. So tell me, how much money will you receive? How much money will you receive in terms of INR? 8.5 million. Right. So you would have received your in terms of rupee, your invoice was worth 75 million rupees, and you are receiving 85 million rupees. Now tell me, this 10 million extra that you are getting is on account of your business operations, or it is on account of your currency exchange rate? Now, if you show this profit of 10 million as part of your operating profit, will it be correct accounting or will it be wrong accounting? It will be wrong accounting, because the person who will read your financials will have an impression that your operating profits are excessively good, whereas in your operating profit you have added 10 millions of profit which are not part of your operating profit, which are accruing to you as a result of change in the exchange rate. And therefore, do you think that this 10 million rupees has to be shown separately in the books of accounts? Everybody? It has to be shown separately in the books of accounts, so that the reader of the financial statements or P&L can differentiate clearly कि कंपनी का जो प्रॉफिट है वो 100 करोड़ 50 करोड़ का है, और उस 50 करोड़ में 1 करोड़ का जो प्रॉफिट है, it is on account of currency fluctuation, so that then he would be able to take a better decision. And that is all that is covered as in your IndAS 12 on income taxes. Are you with me? So अगर ये intent आपको समझ में आ गया, then reading IndAS 12 will not be a challenge for you. बट अगर आप खाली उसको पढ़ते रहेंगे और पढ़ के समझने की कोशिश करेंगे तो बहुत डिफिकल्ट होता है, बिकॉज तो लैंग्वेज बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, कॉम्प्लेक्स है, ऑल ऑफ अस हैव एक्सपीरियंस इट ऑलरेडी। ऊपर से उसका इंटेंट हमको मालूम नहीं है, तो वी डू नॉट नो एज टू व्हाई दिस इंडेक्स इज देयर एंड वी आर स्ट्रगलिंग टू फिगर आउट कि व्हाई दिस स्टैंडर्ड इज देयर। So then you have the IndAS 21 on effects of changes in exchange rate. I'm sorry, I referred wrongly. IndAS 12. IndAS 23, which is on borrowing cost. Now, anyone what is this IndAS 23 is all about? Anyone would like to say? Yeah, please.
The amount of borrowing expenses that we can capitalize.
Okay, and why do we have to do that?
So that we get the true value of the asset in our balance sheet.
Is that all?
No, the other thing is that even when there are multiple provisions in it as well. The other being if we have some sort of a working capital borrowing in a foreign currency, then we need to bifurcate between whatever is the foreign exchange rate and loss and whatever is the borrowing cost.
Okay.
So we have those kind of
Okay,
bifurcations
good.
in there.
Good. Anyone else? Anyone else?
There is a cost that we incur in borrowing a fund or something. The cost is known as borrowing.
The cost is known as a borrowing cost. What else? What is your understanding? Now let's focus on. आपको क्या लगता है? IndAS 23. Why has it been? What must be the intent, objective of the accounting people in putting IndAS 23 as part of the Indian accounting standards? क्यों किया होगा उन्होंने?
क्योंकि आपका total finance charge में क्या आना चाहिए?
Total finance charge में क्या आना चाहिए? That is one. Yes, of course, yes.
Sir, some assets are bought by taking some kind of loan.
Correct.
So up to what point that must be capitalized?
Yeah.
And after what point that must be treated as revenue expense?
Yes, very good.
That is,
Very good. And इसके पीछे why you have to worry about it?
To earn fair value.
To get it to a fair value. So please remember, if I am working on a project, right? I have a running company. On running company, I am having sales and expenses. I am making profit. Simultaneously, I am also executing a new project, and for that project, I have borrowed money. Now, this money that I have borrowed is for that project, and therefore, the interest that I will pay on this project has to be accounted where? On the project or in my normal operations? It has to be accounted for in the project. Now, just imagine if I record the interest that I am paying on the money that I have borrowed, not on the project. If I record that interest as part of my regular expenses, what am I doing?
The profit coming.
I am distorting my profit. I am distorting my profitability. I am distorting my financial performance. Not only I am doing that, and please pay attention. Not only I am doing that, simultaneously what I am also doing, I am underestimating cost of the asset. Please remember, what is the cost of asset? Cost of asset are all the expenses which are incurred by you in bringing that asset into existence. So the loan that you have taken, interest that you are paying on that loan, for constructing this asset, that interest has to be part of the asset only, and it cannot go to your P&L and thereby distort the financial. So that is your IndAS 23 is all about borrowing cost, and it talks about up to what stage can you do the capitalization. The project is complete, right? And for some reason you are not able to operate. Should you be allowed to capitalize the interest when the project is complete, but for whatever reason you are not able to commercially, should that interest be part of your project cost, or should that interest be part of your loan? That has to be part of your finance cost, because your project is complete. Really speaking, you should have started monetizing it. You should have commenced the commercial production. For some reason, if you are not able to do it, and if you want to load that interest cost of this non-operational period to the project cost, then what you are doing? Then again you are distorting your financial statements. Number one, you are overbuilding the cost of the asset, and number two, the interest cost that otherwise should have gone to your P&L, you are not taking there. That means you are erroneously overinflating your performance, right? So that's your IndAS 23, which is about the borrowing cost. Then you have a IndAS 36, which is on impairment. Any idea what? I'm sure all of you would know what is impairment. You know what is impairment?
And the market value is less than the book value.
Market value is less than the book value. Very good. What else? अब देखिए ये impairment IndAS 36. Until IndAS 36, there was no standard on the impairment. So that means what you had, you only had depreciation and you only had amortization. Depreciation you will have in the context of the fixed tangible assets. Amortization you will have in the context of intangible assets. So it would happen that sometime, for some reason, an asset that you are carrying in your operations, value of that asset has gone down, and that reduction in the value of that asset is much more than the amount of depreciation that you would need to charge on that asset. Since IndAS 36 was not there, what you would do, you would ignore that reduction in the value in your asset. Now tell me, the accounts that you are preparing, are these accounts giving true and fair picture, or they are not giving true and fair picture? They of course are not giving true and fair picture. Why? Because a particular asset has gone down in value. That means your company's financial position has gone down. अगर 100 करोड़ का एसेट है, उसका 30 करोड़ का इम्पेयरमेंट हो चुका है, और अगर आप उस एसेट्स को आपके बुक में 100 करोड़ पर दिखाएंगे, that means your static financial position of your company higher by 30 crores. So do you have an impairment? Now, so number one, are we clear as to what is impairment? Impairment is sudden decrease in the value of an asset for whatever reason it can be. How do you figure out where there is an impairment or there is not an impairment?
It has to be like a non-temporary change in value.
Okay. So अगर non-temporary change है, how do you figure out it's a non-temporary change? You know, see, I wish you could say confirmatively this is a temporary change or this is a non-temporary change. So that is what the change has happened, and you have to do the accounting based on that. All of you please pay attention. So changes in the value has gone down. You have to record that reduction in the value. Now for some reason it comes back to the original value. So the standard 36 on impairment will give you power to write it back. So you can write it back, so not an issue. Now the question is, all of you, how do you figure out whether there is an impairment of an asset or there is no impairment of an asset? कैसे मालूम करेंगे आप? Fair value and realizable value. Okay. So it's very simple. There are three things. Number one, there is a carrying amount of the asset. Right? Carrying amount of the asset, which we all know is what? Is the amount at which the asset is currently being shown in your balance sheet. The number two is what? Realizable value. Now what is realizable value? In case if you dispose this asset today, right? What will you get from the sale of that asset minus the expenses that you would incur on sale of the assets? What remains in your head? That is your realizable value. And third is value in use. What is value in use? Anyone?
EV of your future inflow.
EV is present value of your future inflows. Please join your hands, give them a big round. Very good. Yeah. Anyone else? What is value in use? Anyone? What is value in use? Okay. So अब ये तीन चीजें हैं. अब हमें क्या मालूम करना है कि क्या मेरी कंपनी में किसी पर्टिकुलर एसेट का इम्पेयरमेंट हुआ है ना? तो कैसे मालूम करेंगे? We have three figures: carrying amount, and number two, the realizable value, and number three, value in use. पहली बात तो समझ के लीजिए. Where is the impairment? Impairment is when the carrying amount is higher than, carrying amount is lower than higher of. Please pay attention. How do you figure out impairment? Impairment is when carrying amount of an asset is lower than higher of realizable value and value in use.
No,
Okay.
higher than higher of.
Okay. So no worries. No worries. So carrying amount. Can you read this?
Yes.
So carrying amount is 1,000. The realizable value is 900, and value in use is 1,100. Do we have an impairment?
No.
We have no impairment. Why? Because the carrying amount is higher of these two. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
Lower.
Lower than.
That's why we don't have an impairment.
So carrying amount is carrying amount is lower than higher of these two. Is that right, everybody? Okay, does it make sense? I will explain it. So why there is no impairment? Because my carrying amount is 1,000. If I sell it, I will get 900. But if I continue to use this asset, I will get 1,100. So therefore, ultimately, how much the value that I am going to derive, I would be able to derive from this asset is more than the carrying amount, and therefore there is no impairment. But if this amount is 800, then there is an impairment. And how much is the impairment?
100.
How much is the impairment, everyone? 100, right? So why 100? Because I have to compare the carrying amount with higher of these two. So the higher of these two is 900. That means worst comes to worst, what will happen? I will be able to get 900. And since I will get 900, my carrying amount is 1,000. So that means the maximum value that I will get out of this asset is only 900. And therefore there is an impairment of 100 rupees. And I will have to take that impairment, that hit in my balance sheet. So that means I will have to take that cost of 100 as impairment as part of my P&L. Simultaneously, I will need to reduce the value of the asset by 100 crore. And this is how I would record it. Now the question is, next year, for some reason, the impairment that you have recorded because of this situation. Now if it reverses, that means the value in use goes up and the realizable value also goes up. In that case, the question is, can you write back this impairment of 100 of last year? And the answer is yes. The only condition is you can write back only what you have written off. So you cannot write back more than the amount that you have written off. Yes, somebody was raising a hand here. Yeah.
So I had one question. Does the accounting standard always also give an indication as to what's the discount rate that we need to use to find out value in use?
Very good question. Very good question. So, okay, I would like someone to answer from the audience this time.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, like what's the discount rate that we can use? Like does the accounting standard give us an indication?
Market rate.
No, market rate. There is no indication.
That's a very good question. Yeah. Someone from here.
That will be market rate, right?
So when you say market rate, what does it mean? When you say market rate, what does it mean? So what discounting rate to use for the purpose of finding out value in use?
So every asset has its useful life. So
Yeah.
Taking into consideration that useful life, we can find the value.
Yes, his question is, you will using the useful life, you would be able to find out the future projected cash flows. Now the question is, how do you find out the present value of all these future projected cash flows? So what rate of discounting do you use for the purpose of converting the projected cash flows in terms of present value?
Discounting rate of it.
And this is a very interesting area, and all of you are at the threshold of entering into your profession. And this one concept, which is cost of capital. So basically, what we're talking about is cost of capital. And मैं आप सबको बताऊं
Nobody knows.
कि I don't know whether nobody knows or not, but everybody has to know what is cost of capital. Because ultimately, any decision in finance you can take only when you have a good understanding about cost of capital. If you do not have a good understanding of cost of capital, you will not be able to figure it out. You will not be able to use any of the techniques of the finance. And he very rightly said that is the standard gives you as to what rate of discounting to take. Unfortunately, the standard will not tell you, and they should not, and they do not. So, and I just want to, all of you to think about it, because then it would be easy for me to explain to you as to what it is. Anyone here in this room?
So we calculate IRR, will estimate the projected value, estimate the value of cash flows that would be generated from this asset. and we'll compare it with the present value cost, the cost of the asset, and we'll calculate IRR. That must be a discounting.
Okay, very good. See, now all of you, what she is saying, and she is of course getting quite well. And what she is saying is that we would find out the IRR. Now please remember, finding out IRR is not a problem. And why it is not a problem? Because Excel helps you. Otherwise it was a problem. So if you were to calculate IRR for any project, God only knows how much time would it take you, because manually it was really very time consuming. With Excel it's just a matter of few seconds. But will knowing your IRR be enough for you to move forward?
Wouldn't it be more appropriate to have WACC?
WACC.
Considering the risk factor
Okay.
and the market value and the free cost that will.
Okay, so very good. Now, so how do we do the discounting to find out the value in use? The answer, of course, is very simple, because here you will have to use your own cost of capital. And कि आपकी company है, you want to find out the value in use for yourself. Obviously, you will have to use the cost of capital that belongs to you. That does not belong to anyone. That is not specified in any of these standards. So what you will need to do, you will need to find out your weighted average cost of capital. And what is your weighted average cost of capital? So your complete capital structure, all the sources that you have for funding your business, उन सबकी weighted average cost of capital क्या है? Equity है, preferential capital है, debt है, reserves है, premium है, सबका जो भी combined cost of capital. So you will use the future projected cash flow, the life of the asset, use this cost of capital, and that will give you value in use. So the standard will not give you, you will need to find out by yourself. Yeah? Okay, good. So we've done impairment and IndAS 37, provisions and contingencies, and it's a, yeah.
When you check for impairment of an asset?
Very good. So you will need to check impairment of an asset on the every time when you close your accounts.
For every asset?
Every year. Yeah, every year. So every year you will have to take a call and see as to which are the assets that you have and which of those assets must have impaired. So the assets about which you have confidence that these assets are operational, there is nothing which has happened to signify that their value must have gone down. So you don't touch them. Other assets about which you may have an idea, or you may have a reason to believe because of whatever information that you may have in your control or in your possession. Based on that you can decide. But it has to be done because auditors will insist on that. Okay. So then you have provisions and contingencies. So when an amount is to be recorded as provision, when this amount has to be recorded as a contingency, that is what the IndAS 37 would talk about. Intangible assets is IndAS 38. Now let me tell you friends, intangible asset, we all understand what is an intangible asset. Intangible asset is something, tangible asset is something that you can touch, you can feel and you can see. Intangible asset is the other way around. So intangible asset is one that you cannot touch, you cannot feel and you cannot see. But intangible assets are more important than the tangible assets. It's a common belief among everyone that all over the world, the businesses are run based on the strength of tangible assets. Partly it is true, but the fact of life is, world over, the businesses are run more on intangible assets and less on tangible assets. Interestingly, and please pay attention, interestingly, more often than not, it would also happen that a company is having intangible assets, but those intangible assets are not reflecting on the balance sheet of that company. Yes or no? And why will that happen? Can somebody tell me? Why is that company is holding intangible assets, but those intangible assets are not reflecting on the balance sheet of the company? Why should that happen?
Value, not value. Do they not know how to value?
Do they?
Not know how to value it? Is that
No,
the reason?
see, knowing how to value the intangible assets is not a rocket science, so people would know. See, remember, why is that so? Why is that a company owns intangible asset, but it does not reflect on the balance sheet of the company, and it is for the reason that you show an asset in your balance sheet only if you have paid for it. Are you with me? You will show an asset on your balance sheet only when you have paid for it. If you have not paid for it, you will not show that asset as part of your balance sheet. So a company like Coke or Pepsi or IndAS or Google or Microsoft or many companies, Pepsi will not have, Pepsi is such a huge brand, it's a global brand. Can you imagine how many bottles Pepsi will be able to sell without using the brand name Pepsi? अगर Pepsi as a company वो जो Pepsi का brand नाम यूज करके जो बोतल वो बेचते हैं, how many bottles they would be able to sell? None, isn't it? So you can understand they would be able to produce any amount of Coke or cold drink that they produce, but without the use of Pepsi, they will not be able to market, they will not be able to sell even a single bottle. So you can understand the significance of intangible asset, and the value of this Pepsi brand name is not reflecting on the balance sheet of Pepsi. And why is that so? Because this brand value that Pepsi has created over the years is not by paying money, but by its use of that brand name. Right? Are you with me? So that is the significance of intangible assets. There are many methods available for valuation of intangible assets, which of course is not a rocket science, and I'm sure you can very easily find out as to what those methods are and to the valuation. For Pepsi, it will not reflect in the balance sheet, but please pay attention. Tomorrow, Pepsi and Coke enter into a transaction where Pepsi is merging into Coke, and for this merger, please remember, Coke will have to pay not only for all the assets that Pepsi has all over the world, Coke will have to pay even much bigger amount for the brand name called Pepsi, right? So when this merger happens or when this takeover purchase happens, then what will happen? Then Coke will pay, let's say, $40 billion for getting Pepsi as a brand. Now, when the Coke will make its balance sheet, then Coke's balance sheet will have Pepsi brand name as an asset with an amount $40 billion. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, good. Yeah.
Can something like the data that is being collected nowadays be considered as an intangible asset?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And that's a very good question. I think Yushi also deserves a good round here. So remember, her question is, can the data which are collected, and I'm sure all of you, कितनी मार्केट चालू है प्राइवेसी के ऊपर, डाटा कलेक्शन के ऊपर, why these people, कई बार ऐसा होता है, ध्यान रखिए, आप जाते हैं पेट्रोल पंप पे, है ना, पेट्रोल भराने के लिए आपके टू व्हीलर में या गाड़ी में, और एक बंदा आता है आपके सामने और बोलता है सर ये हमारी कंपनी ये है ना लॉटरी चला रही है, आपको कुछ नहीं करना है, खाली आपकी इन्फॉर्मेशन देने हैं, और हो सकता है आपको सिंगापुर या मलेशिया जाने का मौका मिले, या अगर आप जीत गए तो हो सकता है आपको मर्सिडीज कार भी मिल सकती है, और आप बड़े खुशी खुशी वो फॉर्म को भर देते हैं, आपका पूरा डिटेल, मेल नंबर, ये वो अमुक तमुक, और आपको लगता है कि अभी मर्सिडीज का फोन आएगा कि हाँ आप लेके जाओ अपनी गाड़ी। ऐसा कभी होता नहीं, कभी हुआ नहीं। These are all frauds. And what they are doing, they are collecting your data. And when they are collecting your data, then they are selling it and they are making a lot of money. So today, Facebook or Google, one of the reasons as to why their revenues are because they are using all the data. तो जब भी आप उनके अकाउंट पे उठते नहीं बहुत सभी के, जब भी आप सब्सक्राइब करेंगे वो पहले आपसे पूछ लेते हैं, पहले आपकी परमिशन ले लेते हैं that we allow because if you don't put allow button they will not let you move forward only and आप desperation बोलते हैं ठीक है कौन सा मेरी information क्या फर्क पड़ने वाला है, तो ऐसे करके उसका इस्तेमाल होता है।
So does that show up in the balance sheet?
Which one?
Data assets.
कौन सा वाला? Have you paid for it?
It will be again reflected in the same way during mergers or something.
Have you paid for it? ये आपने सारा जो आप पेट्रोल भरने के लिए गए उस बंदे ने आपसे आपकी इन्फॉर्मेशन कुछ आपने बांट दे दिया है ना, तो वो जो कंपनी जो डाटा कलेक्ट कर रही है, गुड कंट्रीज, वो जो कंपनी डाटा कलेक्ट कर रही है, उन्होंने जो डाटा कलेक्ट किया, अगर वो ईमानदारी से अकाउंटिंग करेंगे तो जो भी खर्चा उन्होंने किया सब लोगों की इन्फॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करने के लिए, दे कैन शो दैट एक्सपेंस एज द कॉस्ट ऑफ बिल्डिंग दैट डाटाबेस।
Let's say we're giving the salaries for people who are collecting and stuff like that.
Correct, exactly. तो सैलरीज वगैरह जो भी whatever expenses they go incur, If they do the accounting correctly, they must show that as an expense, which they can rightfully show as an asset. Okay, they
But
will-
at cost.
At cost, yes, yeah, at cost. लेकिन अगर ये पूरा डाटाबेस वो किसी और को बेचते हैं, तो वो जो खरीदता है, whatever price that he would pay, that he would have to show in his books as cost of that asset. So this is very interesting. Please pay attention. एक आदमी है, 10 करोड़ लोगों के डाटा उसने खरीद इकट्ठे किए, उसके ऊपर उसने समझो 1 करोड़ रुपए का खर्चा किया, और 1 करोड़ रुपए का खर्चा करने के बाद ये डाटाबेस उसने किसी और को सेल कर दिया, नॉट ऑन एक्सक्लूसिव बेसिस कि तुमको भी दे रहा हूँ, 10 और लोगों को भी बेचूंगा। तो 1 करोड़ का डाटा उसने 10 लोगों को बेचा 10 करोड़ में, तो वो 1 करोड़ का डाटा जो उसकी बुक्स में दिख रहा है एसेट 1 करोड़ की, वही सेम डाटाबेस 10 लोगों की कंपनी की बैलेंस शीट में 10 करोड़ से दिखाई देगा। So that is the power of data. Okay, good. So then you have investment property, IndAS 40. And what is investment property? So remember, sometimes in your business, there are lot of companies whose sole business is to invest in the assets and use those assets for generating revenues. So IndAS 40 is about the investment property. So इस तरह की जो आपकी properties पड़ी हैं जहाँ पे investment किया हुआ है, how to do the accounting of that is part of your IndAS. IndAS 41 is about agriculture, and when it is agriculture, that means in case if there's a company, agriculture company है, how will they do the accounting of their assets. IndAS 101 is, as you can say, first time adoption. So first time अगर कोई company is going for the IndAS or has to go for IndAS, now they will have to comply with the provisions of IndAS 101, which is on first time adoption. And what can that be, as we discussed little while ago in the first half, कि अगर कोई कंपनी फर्स्ट टाइम अडॉप्ट कर रही है तो उनको कितने साल की बैलेंस शीट देनी पड़ेगी? 3 साल की, राइट? सो दैट इज एज पर द रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ IndAS. Then you have insurance contract, which is exclusively for insurance contract. IndAS 109, which is financial instruments, as we discussed little while ago, and then IndAS 113, which is on fair value measurement. We'll talk about, we'll discuss some of these things in little detail. Then finally IndAS 115. So पहले आपके पास एक IndAS था, IndAS 18, which was on revenue recognition. So IndAS 18 is now replaced with IndAS 115, which is on revenue from contract with customers. So that is how the change is. And then you got IndAS 116, which is leases. And then finally consolidation related. So IndAS 27 is on separate financial statements. IndAS 28 is on investment in associates and ventures. IndAS 103 on business combinations. IndAS 110 is consolidated financial statements. IndAS 11 is on joint venture. IndAS 112 is disclosure of interest in other entities. So really speaking, IndAS 112, which is on disclosure of interest in other entities, would cover disclosures about all these standards. Now, before we move forward, let me tell you. See, there are 3 kinds of financial statements that the company have to prepare. You know what those 3 kinds of statement I'm saying? Financial statements. 3 kinds of financial statements under these standards companies would prepare.
Separate, consolidated, and
So one is standalone,
individual.
and second is separate, and third is consolidated. Standalone का मतलब क्या है?
Individual.
That means a company which does not. How do you differentiate between the individual standalone or separate? How do you differentiate? Everyone. How will you differentiate?
For standalone, there is no other subsidiaries या joint ventures या other.
Absolutely. Please join your hands. Give her very good. Very good. So standalone या individual financial statements का मतलब है कि ये कंपनी का किसी और कंपनी से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, क्योंकि कहीं इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है, कोई सब्सिडी नहीं है. So that becomes a standalone. Then you can have a company where company has investment in other companies or may have a subsidiary. The financial statements of this company, when they are prepared, they are referred as separate financial statements. And when this company prepares and consolidate the financial statements of other entities who are its subsidiaries, then it is referred as consolidated financial statements. Okay. Now, I have also just tried to classify, and by the way, I will share this copy with all of you so that it becomes very easy for you. Any one of you can just send me a WhatsApp message and I will send to that person, and that person can share with every one of you. And I'm also recording this session, so and I will upload on my YouTube channel. So anyone who sends me a WhatsApp, I will also share. I'll share the link with the institute as well. But some of you also can send me. So I would send it to you so that you can share it with. Just make sure that you share it to everybody as it may be distributed. तो अभी IndAS is applicable to all companies. So ये जो IndAS हैं, ये सारे companies को applicable होंगे. Any company which is going for IndAS, these will be applicable. Say in the presentation of financial statements, it has to be applicable to all companies, right? Statement of cash flow has to be applicable to all companies. Interim financial reporting, assuming that this company is doing something of interim financial reporting, it would be applicable. Likewise, so these are related to the presentation, including the IndAS 13, which is on fair value measurement. Financial position related, so inventories, income tax, property, plant and equipment, employees, borrowing cost, impairment. These will also be applicable in respect of all companies, right? Isn't it? So any company will, in one way or the other, will have to have these. And finally, consolidation related, one is going to be applicable to every company. So whether it's a separate company or a standalone company or a consolidated company, IndAS 101 would be applicable whenever the company is going for adoption of the IndAS first time. Then there are certain standards which would be applicable in a specific situation. So things like that, financial reporting in hyperinflationary economies will be applicable to a company only when this company is operating in an economy which is hyperinflationary. Likewise, accounting for government grants and disclosure of government's assistance. Now this is going to be applicable only in case of a company that company is getting government grant or government assistance. Why I am trying to share this with you? I am trying to share this with you so as to let you know that you do not have to really worry about 39 accounting standards. Primarily, you need to worry about the 20 accounting standards, 10 year, 9 year, 1 year. So 20 accounting standards, you really got to strengthen your understanding. And I'm sure the depth that we have gathered in today's session, अगर आप उसको ध्यान में रखेंगे, understanding of these 20 standards will become very easy. And likewise, IndAS 104 on insurance contract is going to be applicable only in cases where insurance contracts are not otherwise. And likewise, IndAS 104 would be applicable only in case of a company that has taken a decision to dispose of any of its non-current assets. If a company has not taken any decision of disposing of any of its non-current assets, obviously standard 105 will not be applicable. So this is what I have done for the benefit of all of you, so as to let you know as to how will that happen. Then what I have also done is systematic grouping of IndAS for preparation. So these are the 8 standards that would fall into the category of presentation and disclosure. These 5 would fall into the category of separate financial statements and consolidated financial statements. These 3 that we have discussed already will fall into the category of financial instruments. These 5 will relate to the accounting treatment. So I'm sure you would recollect. We talked about IndAS 8, which is on accounting policies, changes in accounting estimates and errors, and like that. So, and these 6 pertain to profit and loss. These 7 pertain to the balance sheet, and these 5 pertain to your special situations, right? So this is how you can group them for a specific purpose. Okay, let's quickly spend a little bit time on some of these standards. So ये तो ठीक है, ये भी ठीक है. अब statement of cash flow, everyone. Which are the three types of the cash flows? So receipt of loan from banks will fall into which category? Proceeds from sale of equipment? Beautiful. Dividend paid to shareholders? Repayment of bank loans? Payment to creditors? And receipt from sales? Good. EPS is, as I said already, is the most important one. And just to give you a very quick example, or let me give this as a small exercise to all of you. Let's see how many of you could crack it. This is a case that you have in front of you. और आपको क्या करना है? All the informations are given to you. Based on this, please find out EPS, which is basic, and EPS, which is diluted. कितना टाइम में हो जाएगा? How much time? 2 minutes? Okay, try. From these numbers, please calculate your
Basic
Basic
is
is 10. Basic is 10.
10, basically 10, okay, very good. And so let's see who comes out with the answer.
9.09.
How much?
9.09.
9.09. Okay, 9.09. I also don't know. So
9.10.
how much?
9.10. 9.0.
Okay, so if two people in a group like 30-35 give me an answer which is identical, I am always confident that it should be correct. Because two people cannot make the same mistake in terms of the decimal points also. So let's see what it is. So this is 9.73, slightly. Or is it that my calculations are wrong? Please check.
9.727.
That's what you're getting?
It's the same thing as this.
Okay, very good. So this is how you will have number of outstanding shares 50. EF earning after tax is 500. Number of shares 50. Capital is 500. So you have 5 number of 10 convertible bonds of $100 each. Conversion rate is 1:1. Tax rate is 30. So your basic EPS of course is 10. And what will be your earning after conversion of bond? So your earning after conversion of bond is going to be 535. Is that okay with everyone? Yes. क्योंकि आपका जो इंटरेस्ट की जो कॉस्ट है, इंटरेस्ट का जो बेनिफिट होगा वो 100 का होगा, लेकिन उस 100 के ऊपर आपको 30% का टैक्स देना होगा. So जो आप टैक्स देने के बाद में आपके पास जो बचेगा वो इट्स गोइंग टू बी 35. So you save on interest of 50, but you pay interest of 30. That is 50. So what is going to be in your hand is 35. So 35 plus 500 becomes 535. So that's your earnings after conversion of bond or dilution. And number of shares are going to be 55. And that's how your diluted EPS is going to be 9.73. Yes, please.
So suppose we have converted the bonds at starting of financial year. So earning.
If you have converted your bond in the beginning of the okay. So what in that
So
case?
there will be earning of there will be no earning from bonds for that particular year.
Okay.
So there will be total earning will be 500 जो पहले था, and then the
No, there will be earning.
It would be other way around. It would be other way
Because you
around.
didn't have, then you don't have to pay interest on bonds, no? That is your
Basically,
saving.
the point is that this is done retrospectively. So this is done for the previous year, right? So because you want to make it comparable, right? So you're just making an assumption कि अगर ये bond अगर last year ही convert हो जाते तो फिर क्या figures होता है?
See your calculation. Your point is valid. So remember, your calculation doesn't really matter as to beginning of the year or closing of the year. Your calculations will have to be from the date on which the conversion will happen.
so this will be calculated on the date.
Yeah, of course. Because obviously your cash flow is contingent upon the date on which the conversion happens. So until the date the conversion happens, your interest liability is there. So that you will have to take that interest liability into account. The date on which the conversion happens, from that date you will have no debt as a liability, so no interest. So for that period you will have the saving of interest. On that interest you make the adjustment of the tax, and that becomes part of the profit which is available as your earnings, and that will divide with the revised
Number of shares.
number of shares. So that's how it's going to be. Okay, so with this, friends, so we come to the close of this session from my side. Somebody was asking me a question as to tell you something about insolvency professional exam. Before I say this, if there is any question on whatever we discussed so far, you can please ask me, and then we can